to UI5ers Live, the webcast where we bring you what's new from the UI5 world straight from the people building it. I'm Margot Wolny and this is episode 57. You can use the chat to ask questions as we go. Today, Patric Ksinsik and Rainer Liebisch are bringing you two things from the 1.146 release. Patric will show you how the filter API finally supports data binding for its values. Then Rainer on role-specific UI adaptations in SAP UI5 Flexibility, now also available on SAP BTP Cloud Foundry. Peter Müßig and Andreas Kunz are here for the discussion round as well. So, and I think we forgot to talk about it, who starts, but I thought maybe Patric, you could start.
It's about bound filters. I want to give an update today in UI5. So in the screen share, you see actually the GitHub issue, quite old, 2014, which gave us, so to say, this request with quite some people asking for this feature. And I will talk about this today. We recently built it, and I will show this and give you some samples and show how to use it. So what is it about? As you can see here in this GitHub issue, we have data binding in UI5 and for collections. So when you have a list and bind this to a table, for example, you can have filters like shown here. So you give a path into your items, so to say, the division in this case. You give a filter operator, and you have a value for the filter. And now the bound filters are about making this value bindable. So you see here, the expectation is, quite some people had it, that you can have a binding expression with the curly braces, so that this filter value is not considered a literal value. So really the string literal curly brace / some property curly brace close. But this is interpreted as a data binding expression so that you can make it more flexible and bind to your data and change the filter value through data binding instead of creating new filters all the time. And for the scenario given here in the GitHub issue, this is especially useful where you have a table, and for each table row you want to have different filters. So in this case, the project should be filtered according to the client. And we rebuilt exactly this sample with a little bit slightly different data in the demo kit. And I'm going to show this and also show how bound filters can be used to exactly have these filters as required here in this use case. So I'm switching to the samples now. You find in the samples in the latest demo kit, starting with version 1.147. I'm now on 148 snapshot. You find this using the bound filters. And this filtered list and table example is the one here. So I'm going to open it. And here we have an analogous example. You have a list of customers, and each customer has a region, and you want to show the account managers exactly for this region. So the filter is that this select box should exactly have the region, or the account manager should come from the region, which is also the one of the customer. So looking at the code now, how is this done? We have here the table, which is bound to the customers. So as you know it from UI5. And here we have the bound filters, so the new feature, so to say, which now filters the path or defines a filter which ensures that the region of the account manager, which is the one here, which is bound to the select, equals the region of the customer for exactly the binding context of the corresponding row where this select box lives in. So this is achieved exactly with this expression, and you see here that the value can be a binding expression with flexibility. Important to know is that you need to use the property bound filter. So we did not add this to the existing filters property for compatibility reasons. So in order to allow for interpretation of the value as a binding expression, you have to use these bound filters in your XML view. So this is how it's done. For this example, we have also another example available. I will briefly show that one, which is called filter bar. So you can also build an example with a filter bar, which you can call an instant filter bar. So here you see a list of employees, and you can have a filter on department or location prefix. So when I enter now the D and press enter or tab out of the field, then the data binding ensures that the department prefix is written, and instantly via data binding is applied to the filter of the table. So you don't have a button or so as you usually have in this example in order to construct new filters, but through data binding you would directly influence the filter of the table. And how is this one done? I will also show briefly the coding. It's a little bit more complicated. So we have here the table with the team members, and you see here the bound filters. In this case, it's 2 on the location and on the department. You see here it's a prefix filter with the operator starts with, and we have a separate filter model where the values from these input fields are written into, so for the location and the department prefix. And here we have in the toolbar, we have the actual input fields which allow for entering, for example, the department prefix. Noteworthy is that we here use a type, the string type, which is in this case an OData type, because these OData types we offer are not strictly bound to OData, but they have a nice feature that they map the empty input to null. Yeah, and this ensures that null and undefined values, when you have them in the model, that the corresponding filter in the bound filters is simply ignored. So this is important if you want to ensure that you want to neutralize a filter. Yeah, and then you need to use, for the bound value, you need to use a null or undefined value. And using this type here on the input field, this is automatically ensured. Yeah, that when you have nothing in the field, that the null value comes out. An additional thing we have here in this example is that we can switch the filter. So you can filter on department, also switch the filter. So maybe I filter by development again, and maybe enter some prefix also for the location. And then now switch, and then these filters go away, and I have a different set of filters. So it's also possible to exchange the bound filters via API. And now you can use the first name or last name prefix. So for example, enter J here, and then you would filter by the first name prefix J. And the data is shown accordingly. And this is achieved using the already existing filter API. So here on toggle filters, you have here, so to say, 2 different sets of filters: the organizational filters, which are the initial ones, and the person filters, which are the ones which are toggled to. And here you have this toggle, and the thing I wanted to show is that you can still call this filter API, but we now also allow for a new filter type, which is called application bound, and which just replaces the existing bound filters with the new ones. And with this, you can easily switch between the filters. And when you switch back, it's also interesting that the old values of the filter are still there. So you see that the department and location prefix filter are still kept, and the new filter is applied. And when we switch to the other set, then the other filter set is applied, and the values are taken for filtering. So this is what I wanted to show. You can look at this also in the demo kit once it is available. And also we have enhanced the documentation correspondingly so that you can read about this. So there is a a bound filter section now in the demo kit where you can read about this bound filters, also about this neutral filtering with nullish values, which I've talked about. So there is a comprehensive documentation on that also. Besides the...
So Patric, you said it's available since 146?
Yeah.
Or 147?
The samples are available, I think, 147, but the feature itself is available already since 146.
Okay.
The first reaction I saw already in the chat is that somebody was really like, "Oh my God, finally it's there." When I was a newbie, I was really working hard on this to do this with like literal filters. So this use case was really, I think, something that the community was looking for quite a while, and. Yeah,
Marian said Robin can finally sleep, so maybe at the UI5Con this year we will not get the question again for that, and can cheer that it's finally done.
Also,
not sure.
But I think also this is really one of the things which is also a strength of SAP UI5, that you can do a lot of things in a declarative way, and having now also the capability to bind really filters and use data binding capabilities for that, this is amazing, and this should already save a lot of code lines of the people, even though if nowadays also the AI is writing a lot of code instead of the humans.
Yeah, but I know it was not an easy thing. No, I remember that it took us quite some time, like, to come up really with a good concept. I don't know if you want to share there also something, Patric, but yeah, it was really a challenge.
The actual challenge in the implementation is when you look at it, that these filter objects which are created are not managed objects in the UI5 sense. So this is a prerequisite to be part of the data binding. So we needed to invent for the sap.ui.model.Filter, so to say, a body which is part of the managed object tree, and thereby ensures that this data binding is applied. Yeah. So this was actually the challenge. So we cannot make this sap.ui.model.Filter object a managed object, yeah, so that it is taken care of and part of the data binding. Yeah, this was the actual challenge technically, and that's why it took a while to come up with this. Yeah.
As I said, it was not an easy one, but we are really, like, from the whole UI5 group, are really happy that we could find finally a solution for this issue that was asked so often in the community. So. And now it's really up to you. Use it, check it out. We would be really curious about your use cases. So whatever story you have to tell or share would be really cool to see it and to get a feeling what it meant to you to get this feature. So then, Rainer, it's your turn. So please go ahead.
I would like to present you a new topic of the SAPUI5 Flexibility. It's about adapting UIs for specific user roles. Before I go into details, let me first explain shortly what SAPUI Flexibility is. It is a SAP framework, especially for adapting UI5 apps. And this can be done in different ways. You can either be an end user and personalize the apps for yourself, or you are a business expert, then you need the key user role. And with this role, you can adapt the apps for different teams or for the whole department or company. And both of these parts can be done without any coding. And finally, it's also for developers, but with a low-code part. You can use custom code and extend the SAP apps with it. Now, today I will focus only on the key user, because this new topic is for the key user. Let's say you are working with teams using the same app, but have different needs for this app. Now, the solution now is to create so-called adaptations. You see here on the screen the same app, but different display. So you can now enable it role-specific. For example, here the team for the tech role has other needs than the group for the sales team. And this can now be differentiated. Okay, this I would show you now in a demo.
Maybe while we are waiting, Patrick, a short question came up in the chat. This boundFilter supports OData v4?
Yes, I mean, it's in the documentation. It's the client models, OData v4 and OData v2, but only list binding.
Okay, fine. Here in the me area, this is what I have already said. I have the possibility to click on Adapt UI due to the key user role I have. And now you see here a toolbar menu appeared on top of the app. And for each control that is possible to adapt, overlay has been created. This overlay is responsible for the actions that are possible on this control. For example, here, when I click on it, I see that I can rename it, add further sections, remove it, cut it, and later paste it, or embed content. So these are the possibilities here for this icon tab filter. Now let me start adapting this app for especially the tech role. So here I would like to add a section. I have here the technical data. This is very important for the technical guys. And supplier is not interesting for them, so I can remove it. And general information stays as it is. And now I can go to this toolbar menu, and here I have so far adapting for all users. And when I click on it, now I have a menu, and I have the possibility to save it as a new adaptation. So here I enter a title, let's say tech. The priority is 1 because I don't have further adaptations so far. I come to this later. And now I add a role. Each adaptation needs a role or several roles. You can't create adaptations without any roles. Okay, here I want to have the technical role. Here's my tech role demo. It's exactly what I want to have. Then I save it. And now the adaptation has been saved in the draft. When I would go home now and start it tomorrow again, then I could modify it so no one else but the key user can see it. But yeah, I'm fine with it. I would say Sarah of the tech team eagerly wants to work with it, so I activate it. I press the activate button, enter here a version number, let's say V1. And now the app is active. This means that every user who has the tech role will see now the new information on the app, while all other people without this role will see the old part of the app and don't have this technical data available. I myself also have this technical role, so when I leave the framework, then I also see here this technical data. You can see it when I reload it. It's still there. Now I'm not at the end, so Michael of the sales department is also waiting for his display. So I go to Adapt UI again, and now I can, for example, do the other way around. Michael is interested in the supplier because he has to contact him. The technical data is not important for him, and also the general information too much on the screen. The team don't want to have it, so I can also delete it. And now I go again here on the toolbar menu, and in the tech team and 50% in the sales team, you may have both roles. Then you will always get the UI with a higher priority. So let's say, okay, sales, I insert with prior to and add the sales role. Here it is. And save it. Now the same, it's saved in the draft. And now when I click here on this menu, I have here save as new adaptation I have already presented. I have the possibility to edit the adaptation when I want to make further changes. This is always relevant for the adaptation that is here mentioned. I can delete exactly this adaptation now when I wanted to delete it. In Manage Adaptations, I have this overview. Here are the two adaptations I already have created according to the roles. Context-free adaptation means this is the adaptation when you don't have the roles used here. Then you belong to the group who don't see the adaptations created, so you fall in the category context-free adaptation. Okay, and then finally I can switch the adaptations here. Sales is displayed. I could switch to tech, but tech looks good to me. I would go to the context-free part because all people who don't have anything to do with sales or tech are not interested in the supplier information. I can remove it for them. And now I'm also fine with this part, with the adaptation which belongs to all other people, and can now finally activate it again. Let's say it's version 2 of my app. I confirm. Now it's activated. I also have the sales role. Now context-free adaptation is displayed. When I exit the flexibility framework, then I get a dialog that tells me that when I leave, a reload has to be is automatically triggered because the context-free adaptation has the lowest priority, but I have the role with a higher priority and a reload is necessary. So I, as end user, get here my technical data part because the technical role has the higher priority. So with this, you can modify an app for different needs of different user groups. Now, to compare it, I have, let's see if this works. I have an incognito window open with a user that doesn't have any roles.
There was also one question from Hendrik in the chat. Do you activate all role adaptations, or is it possible to activate only one role adaptation?
Activation belongs to the version. The adaptation is below a version. You can have for one version you can have several adaptations, but you can only activate the version, not the adaptation. So when you make it's always making changes. You can also make normal changes without adaptations. But in the end, you have to activate the whole app as it is, and then the new version is available for all the customers or users.
And there is one more question from Marian. Can I only separate adaptations via roles? Is it possible to assign adaptations to a title so I can have several adaptations in a catalog with tiles next to each other?
No, so far we have only implemented the role concept because this was really needed. But of course, the software is implemented in a way that in future further contexts might be possible. We call it context. The role is now so far the context for this adaptation. But later on, it might be possible to have, for example, country codes or something like that as indicator to differentiate between the different adaptations. But this is yes, can be enhanced, but so far only the role concept is in place. Okay, this is an incognito window. I have to reload. And now you see this end user without any roles, only see the general information. Neither the supplier information the sales role has, nor the technical information the tech role has. So this should show you this exactly the same URL, but a different user. And here you can see that it's possible to have one app, but different displays for different roles available. Okay, before I come to the end, I have one more slide I would like to share with you, because this might be the important part if you are now eager to try it out yourself. End user, key user, and developer adaptation all are available on SAP BTP for Cloud Foundry environment, ABAP environment, and also on the on-premise ABAP platform. But now, what about the adaptation for specific roles on Cloud Foundry? This is our latest development. It's available since SAP UI5 1.146. While on the ABAP environment of SAP BTP, it's slightly older. It is available since SAP UI5 1.114. And on-premise, so far, it is planned. We want to also activate it, but so far, this will come in the future. Because there's also an alternative, you can use app variants instead as a workaround till it is in place. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you. Are there further questions?
I think Marian has something. When you right-click to make an adaptation, there was something with embed something. Never seen that before. What can you embed here?
Yes, you can embed, for example, iframes. You mean this one? Here you can embed content. Here you can embed so-called iframes with an URL inside of it. So this is possible. Yeah, you can use. You have to make sure that you fulfill the course principle, but you can embed other apps, for example. But this is older. This is the iframe concept. We have developed it some years ago, so it's in place for quite a while.
Thank you, Rainer, and also Patric for your presentations. Thanks a lot for sharing this with us and the community. Highly appreciated. And also thanks, Andreas, for preparing everything, and Peter to join me. If there's a topic you'd like to see covered in a future UI5ers Live, reach out, drop us a mail, or find us on the community. Anyway, feel free to contact us, and we are happy to see what we can deliver for you. So, but with this, I think we can close. Thanks for joining, and see you next time then.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.